What is Tokimeki Memorial? The first two things that might come into your mind is it's a dating sim and it's a girls game. I agree with one of those two statements. Tokimeki Memorial is a dating sim. It came out, the first release was on the PC Engine Super CD in 1994, at a time when Konami loved the new CD format and they were eager to try it out. Also evidenced by the fact that Police Knots came out on 3DO at around the same time. It set the standard for what came to be the dating sim genre in Japan, or renai as they call it, which just means kind of love, sort of. It is a little hard calling this a girls game though, because you play as a guy trying to get girls. So unless the lesbian market share is huge in Japan, this is not really a girls game. It did kind of become that later, but I'll get to that pretty soon. So the whole series has a bunch of games. It has like 20 plus. There are 4 games with numbers. Well, the first one doesn't have a number, obviously. That rarely happens. First 2 on PlayStation, third on PlayStation 2, and fourth on PSP. Then there are a bunch of spin-offs, and you can sort of group the spin-offs around the 4 games, at least the first 3. I'm not really sure about the fourth one, that's kind of on its own. First game had, besides having a bunch of ports, it had like 6 or 7 ports to various systems like Super Famicom even, PlayStation, obviously that's the one I have, the Saturn, the PC, a little later on the PSP. It also had a port on the Game Boy Color, if you can believe it, Tokimeki Memorial Pocket. So that had a bunch of ports. The spin-off games around the first game were 2 puzzle games, 2 kind of bonus material discs, the Tokimeki Memorial Private Collection and the Tokimeki Memorial Selection Fujisaki Shiori, which is about her, even though she's on the cover to the Private Collection also. And by the way, Private Collection wasn't a thing that was just with this. Konami also released Police Knots Private Collection. Then there were the drama games, which are all adventure style, more like visual novel-y type games. Tokimeki Memorial 2 then also had the drama games, which are like 3 or 4 or something. And then Tokimeki Memorial 3, I think it was in that era that they started the girls' side sub-series kind of. And there you actually do play as a girl trying to get guys. So there it's turned, from there it turned to a full-on girl game. Some famous Konami luminaries worked on this series. The first one is the guy who also signed my copy here, even though it's kind of hard to see on this in this particular picture. And that is the same guy who made Castlevania Symphony of the Night. It's Koji Igarashi. And he was a scenario writer for the first game on PC Engine CD. After he did that, he wanted to do something else, and he ended up just helming Castlevania all of a sudden, which is a pretty good career move for his part. And then he turned into the hat-wearing, whip-tossing badass that we know him as, and then he left Konami like every other person with any kind of talent. Sorry to the people who are still stuck there at that company that unfortunately doesn't do anything. Oh, Konami. Then there's the other person you might have heard of. It's that guy that you might know from like game like this. Hideo Kojima worked on this series. I have one of the games that he worked on. This is the first episode in the drama series, Nijiro no Seishun. The drama series games, both the ones centered around the first game and the second game, they all use the Police Knots engine. So they all have the same, engine. And I guess because they wanted to use that engine, they had to go to Kojima or something. I don't know how that happened, of course, but so the games that I have is, I have the drama one, I have the original, not the original, but the PlayStation release of the first game, I have the private collection, and I have Tokimeki Memorial 2, which is a little interesting in the way that it comes on 5 fucking discs. 5 discs. That is a little strange to me, because the first game is not like it's lacking content or anything, and it has only 1 disc. So why does the second game have so much more? But that's a bunch of stuff on the series, some connections, that kind of stuff. Now I want to talk about the actual game. So Tokimeki Memorial is a dating sim. You play as a guy, you pick his name of course, who has just gotten enrolled into Kiremeki Koukou, Kiremeki High School. He also grew up living next to and being childhood friends with the school idol, the most popular girl in school, named, although she's only just started there, she's already the school idol, I guess, Fujisaki Shiori, or Shiori Fujisaki, whichever you prefer. She is the best girl, so to speak. She is the waifu. She's the ultimate girl, and she's also a lot of people have described her as the final boss because she is the hardest, the most difficult girl to win over. The goal: get one of the girls. There are a bunch of them, to confess their love to you under the legendary tree, which is also the subtitle of the Super Famicom game, by the way. Ideally, you'd want to get Fujisaki Shiori as the girl that confesses her love to you at the end. But if you can't manage that, there are more girls to choose from. Ignore the guy, because he's just your friend. Also, that's a guy, so... Da-da-da. This will all be blurry, but that's fine. There she is. So the game acts a little bit like an RPG in the way that you have stats, a bunch of them. You have like appearance, and you have intelligence, and it's like art skill and athleticism, which, if I already didn't say that. There's stress, which is not exactly a stat, but, well, it is a stat, but it's not a skill, if that makes sense. Those stats are actually, they're important, because at first, when you start the game, you have too low stats to really do anything. The only girl you can talk to at the beginning is Shiori, because she's, you've known her for a long time. Although you of course haven't had the courage to ask her out or anything, because apparently you're playing as Peter Parker in this game. But anyway, you have to build your stats for any girl to talk to, pretty much. All the girls have different personalities, of course, and those personalities generally align with a certain stat. So Fujisaki Shiori is, because she's the top one, she demands great stats in all categories. And the stress, by the way, has to be low, because that can't be high, Just a few of them, like Yumi, we have here, and Kiyokawa. Kiyokawa is the sporty type, so you need athleticism. Yumi is, what is she? She's like 1 year younger, so she's a little more bratty or whatever. She likes going to game centers. She's one of the few that likes that. Mio here is, of course, the nerd, the library chick, so with her you need a lot of studying. Mira is one with big boobs. I think you need high appearance stat for her to appear in the game. I never got that during my playthrough. Ayako will show up. She did for me anyway. I don't think you have to do anything special, really. Technically it's art. And this one, Yuina, she feels like a character that Hideo Kojima might dream up. Maybe it was Igarashi actually, but someone with humor thought her up, because she's like a scientist-y lady girl. She talks like kind of opposite. So if you call her for a date, she'll be like, "Let me check my schedule. Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm free that day." You meet her at whatever class, and she wants to like try a chemistry concoction on you to see if this serum works or something, and you see her in a lab coat a few times, and her hair is always covering her one eye and everything. She's a little mysterious in that regard. So how the game generally plays is that you start the game, you pick stuff to do in school, like study or go to art or sports or whatever. Then as when you get to a certain, as soon as you pick anything, like a couple days will pass generally. So it's not like you can do a bunch of things in one day, because it's spread out over 3 years, remember. So otherwise the game would go on forever. So you do stuff, build stats, and then when you get to a certain level of stats, girls will come, an event will happen. But in between that, other events will also happen. The typical, really most frequent event is that you will run into a girl on your way home from school, and you will ask them, or they will ask you to go home with them, walk them home, I mean. And like really early on, you'll meet Shiori. Oh, there's Shiori outside your house or whatever, and she's like, "Oh, you want to walk home together?" And even if she asks you early on, it's impossible to do it because you have to build the stats up first. If the stats aren't high enough, she'll just be like, "Nah, it'll be embarrassing if I'm seen walking home with you. So see you tomorrow." Or if you just say, "Nah, that's okay. I'll go by myself," and then that's that. So you call Yoshio, and then you can ask him for information about any of the girls that you've recently met and come in contact with. And when he's told you the information, like which includes like their likes and dislikes, which should give you a hint of what kind of date to and not take them to. He also gives you automatically their phone numbers, and then you can start calling them and asking them out for a date. Other things happen throughout the year, like there are a few set events like there are in real life. So there's Valentine's Day, where you get chocolates from the girls if your relationship with them is good or bad. And then there's their birthdays. And then it comes up a choice, you have to pick the right gift to give them. And that, also the prerequisite is that you know something about them and their personality, otherwise you'll pick the wrong thing. But there's usually also there's always like the three options. One of them is really obviously not a good choice, and the other one is like maybe a little too easy, but also sometimes a good choice. That kind of thing. There's the Christmas party where you go to Rei's house and he takes his opportunity to scoff at you being poor and everything. You meet the girls that you've gone out with so far for like a short little exchange. There's the New Year's and the Hatsumode, which when Japanese people after New Year's go to a shrine. If you're lucky, the girl that you have the best relationship with will come to your house and invite you out. And there's the sports festival, wherein the game's only minigames come in. You have to do a minigame at the sports festival, which is once a year, and there's like a thing where you have to push a ball. You always paired up with a girl, and you have to like push a ball. It's like L1 for you to L1 and R1, something like that. I hate that one; it's really bad. The other one, if you have to like run and then pick the girl out of a crowd and then run to the goal, and that was a little easier. But and then there's the one where you tie your right leg to her left leg, and then you have to run together and that kind of thing. Aren't great minigames, but it's kind of nice to have some kind of variety. Anyway, not to go in too much to the details of everything, but what is the appeal of a game like this? It's kind of hard to say the story, because there is no story in that regard. It's pretty much just hanging out with and getting to know virtual people. There is a fun to it, and the dialogue is written well, and the characters are also well written, although there are a bit of stereotyping going on. Like every character has their quirk. Some of those are good, some of them are not so good. But it's just enjoyable to they built a world here, and I think it did it pretty well. Now I think I've talked for quite enough. Now I'm going to play the game and translate along the way.